The Locked On Rays podcast. And today, Ulysses, we are pleased to be joined by Kevin Goldstein, who is a national writer at FanGraphs and the host of the very popular Chin Music podcast. Also, former scouting director with the Houston Astros. So, a legit former MLB front office executive.
Shaking his
KG
head.
already shaking his head. No, you've been there. You've done that. You are for real.
That's what they tell me.
No, very good. What do you miss most about working in a front office?
There's a lot of things I don't miss. Certainly things I miss. I think just kind of this is a little vague, but just kind of having skin in the game, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's some of it, and this is something honestly I missed during my last year with the Astros because there is currently and was then as well a global pandemic. Like just kind of traveling the world really on someone else's dime and getting paid to watch and getting paid to watch baseball because of it. But yeah, the most part was like kind of seeing anything from like a big league team even to our DSL team and at the time and saying like I had a role in that player being there and I had a role in that guy and those kind of things. That's something I do miss. There are certainly a lot of negatives about working in baseball, certainly a good share of them working for the Astros over the last year. But there were things I missed, but I got to tell you, man, like people, I have, I still talk to plenty of people in the game. I had lunch with somebody in the game last week and I just told him, I said, the lifestyle is so much better now. And he said, yeah, I'm jealous of you. And it is, and it was, I was on the road, 100 plus days a year and sometimes, even much more than that. And, it really is a 24/7 gig. And, I took like two months ago or so, I went to California with my wife and like, that was the first time I took a vacation where I didn't have to necessarily like bring my laptop and look at my phone every hour for 8 years. And so there are things I miss, but certainly things I don't miss at all.
Yeah, and Kevin, you mentioned lots of travel entailed within your position or former position there. What was your favorite place domestically and internationally to visit consistently?
Internationally, I've been to the Dominican probably 25, 30 times. The first time I went there, I kind of fell in love with the place and I still love the place. And there's something about that place that just kind of grabs your soul. And so I love the Dominican. I went to Mexico City and Tijuana and loved both of those. Went to Japan, which was absolutely amazing. I have no complaints about anywhere I ever went internationally. I do like travel and do like seeing other places and other cultures. Domestically, what's so great? Athens, Georgia. I went to Athens, Georgia to see Alex Bregman. LSU was at Georgia, and that's when I went and saw him. And Athens, Georgia is about the coolest college town I've ever seen.
Anywhere in Florida? Tampa?
Like, you mean like cool?
Jacksonville?
I've been, you say somewhere in Florida, I've been there, but I don't know if I'm going to put cool on it. I've been tons of times in Tampa. See a ton of players in the Tampa, St. Pete area, amateur guys, lots of guys in the Orlando area, lots of guys in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, some places on the East Coast up north a bit. I've been all over Florida, and obviously I spent a lot of time there just because the Astros spring there. They were in Kissimmee when I first started, and then we're in West Palm the last couple of years. But yeah, I mean, I've spent literally months in Florida.
Is there a place that you were told, hey, you got to check this out, and you were surprised about the level of baseball or surprised about the quality, and you're like, wow, I did not see that coming?
I mean, I think about like Miami high school. Miami high school baseball is kind of insane, and I knew it was really good, but like it gets really weird. I mean, I live in Illinois. I grew up and I'm from the Midwest, and it's a different kind of baseball here, obviously. And you go see, there's maybe 2 or 3 special high school kids a year, around here. And when you see them, you always think to yourself, well, what does this kid look like if I drop him in Tampa or Miami or Los Angeles, or Texas or like a real hotbed? But the thing that really struck me about Miami was there's a few powerhouses, places like Bishop McCarthy and American Heritage and things like that. But I remember going to a game, and and real dudes were there. Mark Vientos is with the Mets, and Joe Perez, who the Astros ultimately drafted, Terrell, who went to Miami and hit a ton of home runs. Like, this is a big game, huge, big crowd. It's very exciting, lots of energy, and it was really fun. And I was there with a local scout. It's a close game, it's like 3-1, and sixth inning, here comes a reliever. It's a little 5'10" kid. He could spin it a little bit. And the local scout says to me, yeah, this is their sixth inning guy. So first of all, it's a high school team with a sixth inning guy. And that's insane to me. And then he says, yeah, he's going to Richmond. I said, what do you mean? He said, oh, yeah, he's got a scholarship to Richmond. So this is a high school team, A, with a sixth inning guy, and B, the sixth inning guy is a 4-year school he's going to play baseball at. And so it's that kind of thing that kind of blew me away. And, when I saw, like Tristan Casas in Miami, the sophomore center fielder was Enrique Bradfield, who's now just had a huge year at Vanderbilt. But even then, like, he just finished his freshman year and he was already committed to Vanderbilt. After a freshman, it's just like what's going on here? And it's, and if you looked at that lineup on Casas's team, like, 6 of the 9 went to 4-year schools, and 3 or 4 have professional careers that are going to go. It's the depth of the baseball in Miami, the Fort Lauderdale, that really blew me away. I knew it would be good, but it's the depth.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm curious, Kevin, you mentioned a lot of players there, and I'm sure maybe hundreds, if not thousands, of players that you scouted over the years. Was there, to this day, is there a guy that you're like, that was the most talented player at that time that I scouted, whether it was in high school or college or internationally?
Yeah, it was definitely internationally, and it was the Astros had a private workout at their complex in the Dominican for Luis Robert.
Okay.
I don't know if he was the best baseball player seen, but I've never seen tools like that in my life. That I can say. It was absolutely the best package of tools I'd ever seen in person. And I wrote that, and the Astros had kind of blown through their international money the year before, and so they're kind of limited what they could do. And it was, the White Sox obviously went above and beyond for him, and with good reason. But that was the best just kind of set of tools I've ever seen on any field.
And when you're scouting, when you're going to watch a game or watch a player, what's kind of your process and procedure into looking at that particular player? Do you have your notebook? Do you have your laptop? What's kind of in some certain things that you're looking for specifically?
I'm definitely a note taker. I know a lot of scouts have kind of transitioned to iPads and things like that. I'm not that person. I'm a note taker, and I'll put it all together later. It's very player dependent. There's a big difference between going to see a 21-year-old junior right-handed starter at an SEC school and watching a 15-year-old Dominican second baseman. It's not like the checklists are very, very different. And at times I was not necessarily always sent to get a complete picture as much as I did a lot of breaking ties with the Astros, if you will, on the amateur side. It's like, hey, can you go see this guy? We have 3 people who have 400,000 on him, and we have 3 people who have 2 million on him. We have 3 people who think he can stay at shortstop, and we have 3 people who don't. Can you go see him? And I, get on a plane, go see the guy. And so, that sometimes you had very specific, make sure I really need to know what you think about his defense, and so that might flip your checklist and flip your focus a little bit as well. But obviously you're looking at tools. I think it's important that guys be baseball players. We can talk about tools all day, but if you can't play baseball, it doesn't really matter. I think I wish I could look smarter here. Some crazy great football player who I do not know his name. I'm sure he has amazing tools, even on a baseball level, but he's not good at baseball. Ricky Williams was, a guy loaded with tools and a better football player than he was a baseball player. And so you are making sure that they can take those tools. Tools are important, but you have to be able to kind of utilize those tools and apply them to baseball skills, which I some people I don't think look at enough. And like we can talk about tools all day, you got to be able to play baseball too. I think a good example we just saw get DFA'd is Lewis Brinson, who has insane tools, some of the best tools I've ever seen in a high school player, but he can't hit, and
Right.
so it's valueless. Like it's like the applicability of the tools is minimal, and so you do want to look at him. You want to kind of understand the way he operates and understand what the player does and his approach at the plate and what his instincts look like and things like that. While you're also trying to figure out just what the tools are. Like the tools are kind of play a huge role in kind of defining the player's ultimate ceiling. But all that other stuff is going to, it's kind of the bigger needles, kind of his chances of getting there.
Going back to that, half of the room says 2 million, half of the room says 400K, half of the room says, yeah, he can play shortstop. Half of the room says, no, I don't think he can. When you're told, hey, can you see this guy? How many times are you able to see him? Is it just the once, or you get a handful of opportunities?
For a lot of those situations, in the case of a college player, would probably be a weekend. So it'd be a 3-game series. Go see a college guy at a big pro 3-game series. You're probably going to get 2 infields as well, like pregame infields, and a couple BPs. So it's a good look. I certainly have been, because of the number of guys I had to see or because of the commitments, I've had plenty of 1-day looks. They're tough, and a lot of my high school times were 1-day looks, and those can be tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like to get an infield. I do like to get maybe 2, at least 1 BP, and then like in the game, sometime you're just either lucking out or not lucking out. I can think of seeing a player for 3 days and an infielder, and he had 1 ground ball hit to him in 3 days, and it was like not that hard and right at him.
Right.
I had a 50-50 shot at making the play on it, right? And so I didn't get what I needed. And we've gotten in a much better world in the last 3 to 5 years, just with we have so much better video now on the college side, where there are tools out there and services available to teams where I can just go, click Joey shortstop, click all ground balls to his right, click, and I'm watching 100 of them, and that helps immensely.
When you're in that position, say a 3-game series, and you're talking about tools, you're talking about what they can do on the baseball field, the baseball IQ. There's also that other part where, are they a good clubhouse guys? What's their work ethic like? Are they a good person all around? How do you evaluate those things too? Because you don't want to have like just, Joey with the leather jacket showing up late. How do you do that?
I mean, this is one of the places where the area scouts really put in the majority of the work and are kind of the unheralded heroes in a lot of ways, because the area scouts are, it's in the name, they're the area guy, like they're in the area, and they've probably been aware of this kid since he was a sophomore in high school, and have 5 years, and they know about his recruiting story, and they've heard every other story you need to know. We do have to, as an industry, talk about makeup, but I think teams are very different on how they evaluate makeup and what they think is important on makeup. I don't care if the kid goes to church and helps old ladies across the street, and there are plenty of players who I would never want to have dinner with, and frankly I'm sure I think are assholes who I think have great makeup, right? Does he love baseball? Does he work hard? Is he driven to constantly improve? There are plenty of people who have that who are absolute jerks.
Yeah.
In my mind, they have good makeup, and it's really about that in my mind. I think sometimes, we put a little too much focus on the other stuff. Like, is he a quote unquote bad kid? And, at times I think the way some people judge what is good and bad often, ends up crossing some lines, in terms of, maybe you just don't understand the culture this person came from. How about let's just care about, does he love baseball? Is he work hard at baseball? Does he understand where he is? Does he have a good sense of self in terms of, there are high school kids who think they have it all figured out. That's trouble in my mind, because we got best high school player in baseball, you drop him in the big leagues, he's going to be awful, and so they have to understand where they are and what they need to work on, and the best ones do. And the best ones are constantly working. I think about, Bryce Harper, Carlos Correa, those guys are not happy right now with how good they are. And I think that's a really important thing to me. And that's, I tend to cringe when on the makeup side when people start talking about, that he's a bad kid, and like, well, what's bad, and it's well, you say that, but that doesn't matter. I don't. It's does he work hard? I don't. Bad attitude is a funny term, and like, yeah, he's surly, but he works his ass off. That's great. The only bad stuff I'm worried about are things that actually involve him, committing crimes and harming others, like that I care about. But great, the kid's surly. Okay, I don't care.
Following up on that, and I've had this question, and we had a former or current Reds scout on the podcast before, but how much, if at all, can say maybe he's a good player, but also a malcontent, a guy that doesn't get really along with anybody within the clubhouse? How much, if at all, does that disrupt a team's ability to win and compete and have cohesion over the course of 162 in spring training and postseason and so
on? You're talking about a very player dependent situation. I always felt it was important during my time with the Astros to let AJ Hinch know what he was getting. This is what's coming into your clubhouse. Without naming names, I can think about a player. I'm like, hey, we might acquire this guy. We're looking at him. He's going to be a pain in the ass, right? There's going to be some friction here. It's going to be a pain in the ass. And AJ, I remember AJ saying, I can deal with it. Don't worry about it. I can handle this one. And then I remember, talking to him about, some possible guys to bring in as kind of lower level acquisitions, money wise, before spring training. And I remember bringing up a name, and AJ said, absolutely not. I won't have him here. And so, it goes in a few directions. It's very player dependent, and but you do have to. This is obviously something the Rays do. Just get back to them real quick. Obviously, I think keep your manager in the loop of who these people are, and it's kind of on you to let him know what he's getting, and the manager's going to call. They're all very close to each other. It is a community of managers. They're going to call that guy's old manager and say, what am I getting here? What's going to be like, and he'll let him know. But it does matter. I think you just kind of want a sense of something in your clubhouse. It can be a lot of things. There are you think about like those mid-'80s Mets teams, which were a team of absolute shitheads, and they won a World Series, but they were like, it was like unified. Yeah, we're all shitheads, and yeah, you just kind of need everybody on the same path, if you will.
Interesting. And speaking of that, and being able to,
speaking of shitheads,
yeah,
yeah,
for sure. Managing a clubhouse and the responsibilities and role of a manager. Of course, Kevin Cash won his second straight AL Manager of the Year award, and he gets a lot of credit and kudos for how he works with the players. Have you heard anything, within the industry about how good Kevin Cash is compared to the average manager, so to speak?
I mean, I've heard nothing but great things, obviously, and with good reason. I believe everything I've heard. I do think it's one of those things where it's the most important part of being a manager. We can all go online and find some manager scorecard on his pinch hitting and his reliever replacement. That's 10% of the job, right? 90% of the job is managing the clubhouse, and and it's soft science. It's hard to measure, but getting the best possible performances out of your players, that's a manager's job, is getting the best possible performance out of your players. And we can't necessarily pop that onto a spreadsheet, so we're uncomfortable with it. But that's the job. And so, and part of that involves managing athletes, and athletes are weird, very weird human beings, because they've lived very weird lives. The life of being a professional athlete is a very weird and unique thing, and it makes for weird and unique people. And so that's the manager's job. Like the rest of am I going to bring in Smith or Jones here in the 6th, and I'm going to pinch hit here or not? I'm going to buy, like, it's just such a smaller aspect of the job that I think gets way too much focus on the public side, because the public is in no position to measure the other part.
You talk about athletes being weird. I think Kevin Kiermaier is a little bit off on the field. I have a term for it. I call it jock weird. It's just something I coined a little bit, but
yeah, I don't mind that. But I feel like jock weird almost applies to like high school. Like once they get to the pros, they're so much weirder, and often in a more positive way, just because they like the high school dynamics gone. But yeah, they're just strange. Like they were always good, and then they went to school maybe or didn't go to school. Like got $1 million when they were 18. And always had it's a very weird world. I'm not saying they're bad people, they're just weird because they've had such a weird, like a very unique experience, and because of their unique experience, they have kind of no basis of understanding of your life or my life. Like and it's understandable, and it's just, but yeah, they're weird. Athletes are
when
weird.
you say weird, can you give some examples? Like what stood out to you that was, okay, this is a little off or
it's
abnormal?
It is. I think for a lot of players to be as good as they are, honestly, just the amount of work they put in and their obsession with the game, like some of them are frankly psychopaths, and that's one of the reasons they're good, and it's just how it is. And just the obsession with what they do, and it just creates like a weird sense of they all have weird egos. Some are really big and some are really small, where they still don't feel good enough. It creates strange social behaviors at times, just because they don't really know how to interact with people who aren't athletes, who don't play baseball and make millions of dollars. And I've really like most players I've dealt with, but they're weird, but it's not a negative. I'm not trying to make it sound like most of them are great. I really like most of the players I dealt with. It's just they live a very strange life.
I want to talk about that connection that now the Rays and the Houston Astros have with James Click, and you can actually look at it all around baseball, and you can see so many Rays coaches, going and getting to be managers in other teams, and front office executives going outside, and now it's like everywhere that they started with the Rays. You talk about this change in the last 10, 15 years with baseball. Is there a problem happening right now if a team, for example, the Rays, they have their own metrics, they have their own way of, is that Stu Sternberg?
Yeah, Stu's calling me.
Is
I got to
Stu
put that
calling you?
on mute. There we go. Sorry about that, Kevin. Sometimes Stu will just call us during the podcast. It's very annoying.
I have my phone on silent, but he just left me a voicemail. So
there you go. With them creating their own platforms and their own metrics, and then them going somewhere else, and that keeps happening, and that keeps happening. Is baseball going through a uniformity of thought? Like, are everybody just thinking the same thing because everybody goes everywhere?
I don't think so. And I think, when you are operating the way in which the Rays operate, and I have a lot of respect for what they do, but not why they do it, I guess would be the best way to put it. But I certainly have a lot of respect for what they do. And if you are going to do things like the Rays do, and obviously, the Astros were innovators as well in a lot of these newer areas, and you have to always be innovating, and you have to always you can never rest on what in the sense that somebody who was a key part of the Rays departs for, let's make a team up, the Rockies. 2 years later, his institutional knowledge of the Rays is already getting quite stale, because the Rays have innovated and changed. And I can talk about a specific instance for during my time with the Astros, is that the Rays or rather the Astros were very, very much on the forefront of using pitch data, and TrackMan, and like the 2013, 2014 drafts identified all these pitchers who had wonderful pitch data, and got to draft them. because like nobody else knows. We'll just get him in the 6th round, right? Now this one we love, he's still there in the 7th, right? And just keep rolling, and really like somewhere like around 2015, and by 2016 it was over. Like 2015, all of a sudden we're like, oh, we'll get that guy in the 5th, and he goes in the 2nd. You're like, oh, they saw it too now, huh? And then a different team takes the guy you like in the 3rd. You're like, oh shit, they're onto it too, huh? And then by 2016, everybody's drafting TrackMan guys. And so, people see what teams are doing, and then they go, well, what are they doing? And they figure it out because they have really smart people, and so, or they hire them away. And so, any team, I think at times, especially the Rays, are trying to create these competitive advantages, but the window of value for those competitive advantages is usually measured in 1 to 2 years.
And speaking of that, what do you consider or believe will be that next competitive advantage?
If I knew that, I wouldn't be talking to you guys.
Yeah, I know. I guess
not that they don't love you.
Yeah.
It's a good question. It's funny. As an industry, we're starting to play in the margins in a lot of places, like the giant, huge breakthroughs. I don't know how many are left. We're still, as an industry, way, way, way ahead on pitching than we are in hitting. But I don't know if that gap is closable. Obviously when we are, talking about pitching, we have pitch data. We have amazing pitch data, right? And that pitch data is amazing because of its completeness. I'm looking for a baseball. And so, when a guy throws a baseball, like the laser picks it up and tracks it all the way to home plate. And we get the velocity, we get the velocity here, we get the velocity there, we get how many spins, we get the direction of the spin, we get everything we need, right?
Right.
Hitting, the most single important aspect to hitting is hand-eye coordination. There's nothing to measure that. Zero. We have no ability to measure that. I can't. I cannot take a 6-inch needle and shove it in your brain and find those synapses and get some sort of great hand-eye coordination measurement. Right? It's not there. And so pitching is always going to be way ahead of hitting. And then the other, the thing that's been a white whale for baseball teams for 15 years is health. And teams have done a lot of work on health in terms of getting better medical stats, much better strength and conditioning, better nutrition, better sleep, better mental health services to their players and things like that. But in terms of just like predicting injuries and trying to figure out who's going to be on the field, not, they've put tons of manpower into it and gotten no results. I have a good friend. I've told this story a few times, but I have a good friend who's absolutely one of the smartest analysts working for a team that I know. He is wasting his time in baseball. He should be getting us to Mars or something. He's a brilliant human being. Unbelievable. And he spent a year. This is someone getting paid 6 figures already. He spent a year of that time working on an injury model, trying to predict injuries and forecast player health. And at the end of the day, after a year of work, all it would really spit out is that guys who get hurt tend to get hurt again, and guys who stay healthy tend to stay healthy. And tend was carrying a lot of water in both those statements. And so, and teams are still putting a ton of work into this, but I'm not sure the results are there just because there's so much just kind of variance and weirdness, and Corey Seager signs with Texas, right? And everybody's well, you can't stay healthy. I'm like, well, he got hit by a pitch last year. Is that some sort of indication of his ability to stay healthy? Right. Is that on the player? 2 years ago, I would get it because, he had a TJ and a hip problem, right? But this year he missed a third of the season because he got hit by a pitch in the hand. Like, that's how are you gonna measure that? That's 0 on the player, right?
Yeah.
And so you end up in these weird spots, and I think it's a really, really tough thing to do. But teams tend to still think there's something there, but I'm not sold.
That's actually happening right now with the Rays getting Corey Kluber. I feel like in his 80 innings with the Yankees, he did pretty well. I mean, he was a guy that you can count on for 80 innings, 385 FIP, 384 ERA. I mean, that's valuable. The issue is the health. So if there isn't a stat sheet, an Excel spreadsheet where you can put a formula to get the health, do they just go say, well, let's roll the dice? I mean, is there a final conversation there that happens?
You're rolling the dice on anybody, obviously, but I'm sure you'd have a real conversation. If I was in that room, and you were in that room, I would look you in the eye and go, "Be honest with me right now. Las Vegas calls you right now and says, what should we set the over under on Corey Kluber's innings in 2022? What would you say?"
90.
I think that's important information, right? You're in the room, smart baseball person. I'm asking you how many innings you think we're going to get, right?
Yeah.
And so now that's going to help us value the player and create a contract. And let's go around the room. What do you think? Why do you think that? I got my doctor. He's spent 3 hours going through his medical record. What do you think? And so you do talk through those things while also obviously understanding there's incredible variance to these things. And Corey Kluber, might trip on the stairs on March 13th and not pitch again, and he might take the bump 32 times. Right? Both of those are possibilities. The most realistic possibilities somewhere in the middle. Mm-hmm. But it's just more of understanding like what a baseline of expectations are, what your variance is, and valuing it for there. But you absolutely roll the dice, and obviously Kluber knows they're rolling the dice because he took such a kind of an incentive-based contract where it's kind of 8, and I think he can get to 13 if I remember right. So Kluber's willing to understand. Yeah, I understand there's a lot of variance here, and I'll help mitigate that by saying I'll earn my variance. If I get to this end of the variance, I get paid.
Speaking of pitch, the Rays not only signed Corey Kluber, but also signed former Astros pitcher Brooks Raley to a unique 2-year, $10 million contract that eventually could work its way up to 3 years and $19 million in some change. Kevin, do you have any insight on what Brooks Raley brings to the table and what the Rays see in him?
I'm sure they see what the Astros saw in him. Big fan of Brooks. Kind of definitely pushed very hard for his acquisition in Houston. He has absolutely some of the best left on left stuff in all of baseball. His slider against lefties is a 70 or an 80. And he's able to kind of survive against righties thanks to a cutter. And so, I think the Rays utilize their relievers incredibly well in terms of finding envelopes for them to succeed. I think that it's very clear, and a lot of credit to the Rays for the culture they create, where they have relievers who are comfortable coming in the 4th or the 8th because that's where their envelope is. Because that's a really, really hard thing to do. But yeah, I think if few teams in baseball are going to be able to kind of exploit what Raley can do and utilize it better than the Rays. And I think he's going to put up great numbers for him. He is such good stuff. And I think the Rays know exactly, the way they manage games is going to put him in a position to kind of maximize that stuff. I was a big fan of the signing. I think he's kind of it's the perfect team for Brooks.
We work a lot with on this podcast doing tongue-in-cheek conspiracy theory. So I'm gonna throw you my conspiracy theory here.
This isn't going to be like a QAnon thing, is it?
Yeah, no, not that much. We have fun with it. Conspiracy theory. The exit velo on Brooks is just remarkable from the left side. Another guy who's elite in this team that does exactly that is Ryan Yarbrough. Ryan Yarbrough's going through arbitration. The Rays might want to lower, if they're bringing in this salary, they might want to get away with Yarbrough. But then you need innings because Yarbrough has been the guy who's covered the most innings.
Right.
Brooks has been a starter in the past. Do you see that at all, or no? Not selling on this.
Yeah, I'd get the tinfoil off your head on that one. Yeah, I think I'm glad you pointed out like the huge difference there. Yes, I get it, they're both like left on left dudes. But yeah, Brooks, I think at this point is a pure pen arm. It's how he should be used, and I understand using a guy like Yarbrough for a little length when you need it. I will be the first to confess I think it's interesting the way Rays use pitch. I don't always agree with it, but more importantly, I don't think I necessarily always understand it either. and at times it challenges me and how I think about things. And but Yarbrough gives them length when they need it. They do seem to have like this. And I think we're going to see less of this, obviously, with guys like Baz coming up, and kind of them actually maybe having 2 or 3 traditional starters in the rotation. Wouldn't that be novel? But they get in positions at times during the year when they don't have that, where it's like, now we need this guy to get us 12 outs. Like we just need 12 outs tonight from the start, and like to have a guy like Yarbrough do that, I think means a lot to them. But that's not the kind of thing I don't. I think it'd be a mistake to ask for Raley to be that kind of guy.
I can take my tinfoil hat on that one. How about this one?
Oh boy.
Can he be a Colin McHugh 2021 guy? All right, fine. Don't give me 4. Don't give me 5. But can you give me 2 innings? Maybe 3 if I really need it today, Brooks.
I think in the right, if against the right opponent in the right setting, Brooks Raley can get you 6 outs. Yeah, I think definitely for sure. And I also do wonder if you could, and the Rays do this sometimes. I've seen them do it. If you could, and they do it with Yarbrough sometimes, but righties do hit Raley, pretty well at times. And like if you just start Raley, if they're going to stack righties, and then you get to flip your pitcher and force them to flip their lineup and create, some potentially like late inning stress for them because they're out of players, kind of thing. Like I could see him, doing a Rays start, if you will, and trying to get 6 outs.
Ulises, how have we made it this far into the podcast without mentioning the name Wander Franco?
I think honestly, we
should. The old Astros third base kid. Yeah, I remember him well. Yeah, sure.
That name rings a bell. Yeah, we love Wander Franco around these parts. Obviously, seeing the extension just brought almost tears to our eyes because we never see that type of money being thrown at a play. Like, actually, we have never seen that money being thrown. The last one was Longo after the 2012 season for $100 million. So, as somebody watching this, not in Hillsborough County and happening, how good do you think Wander Franco can be if a team like the Rays are putting $182 million guaranteed in his face?
I mean, I don't see what one has to do with the other necessarily. I think any team would have offered him that kind of deal.
Okay.
I don't think it's the Rays seeing something special that other teams don't. I don't know anyone who doesn't think he's great. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like I think any team, if they had Wander Franco and had permission from their owners to offer him 11-182, would be happy to. So how good can he can be special. He can be a face of the franchise type. He can be the kind of guy who is going to generate the holy shit, look at how great this young player is, sweeping the nation kind of thing that, a guy like Tatis or Vladdy or, Acuna and guys like that, he can be in that conversation as a 6 to 8 win player.
Yeah.
I think it's dangerous to expect it next year.
Right.
Just because it usually doesn't. Like, I understand, like, Fernando Tatis showed up and took the world by fire, but that's not the norm. Vladimir Guerrero wasn't great till year 3.
Yep.
Acuna took a little bit. Mike Trout got sent down. And that's the norm. Those are the norms, right? And we get into a weird kind of instant gratification world where like he comes up for 2 weeks and and he's 3 for 30. Like, oh, this guy sucks. And like that's the norm. I mean, Major League Baseball is unbelievably hard, and so, but I do think he is a guy who is, he's a shortstop. He's not an amazing shortstop defensively, but he's a shortstop. He's a real shortstop.
Yeah.
Who could hit, 300, 320, steal some bases, get on base, pop 25 out. Like it's a guy who's going to be showing up on MVP ballots.
That's exactly what we're hoping for.
He's also a lot of fun. Like he's a good guy. The energy is fun to watch. Like he brings a really nice energy to the field, and I think I think that matters as well.
Yeah, the hustle too. I mean, the triples were amazing. I mean, the triples in under 70 games was really remarkable. But going into the clubhouse, see, there's a 21-year-old. He's not even 21 yet. So a 20-year-old shows up with $182 million guaranteed in a team that really doesn't extend a lot of folks, doesn't have big contracts. Can that lead to, maybe not resentment is the right word, but some tension in the clubhouse from the young guy? Or are they just happy to see, hey, our ownership is spending on the guy who should be getting this type of money?
It's funny. I think the most overwhelming feeling in the Rays clubhouse is going to be, holy crap, he's our shortstop. Isn't this great? You know,
Okay.
like that. Like, look how great this guy's going to help us win ball games. Right? This guy's going to impact games for us. Like, this guy can win a baseball game in a variety of ways, and he's on our team. Like that's how it's going to be looked at. I think for the most part. I understand what you're saying about the money, but I don't. I think players tend not to begrudge anyone for getting paid, right? And sometimes there might be a little bit of ribbing to, like, the first round pick who got $6 million, who comes to spring training for the first time and has never played. But the second they're in the big leagues, it's welcome, kid, you're part of it, go get them now, and that kind of thing goes away. There's not really like a lot of resentment, for anyone. Like I think there wasn't resentment among the Baltimore Orioles teammates for Chris Davis when Chris Davis was making, whatever, $25 million hitting 160.
Right.
It was like, look, man, Chris used to be awesome. Chris got paid, and I feel for Chris. I know Chris wishes he was better, right? And so that doesn't really happen. Teams, no one, like, the players are. It's obviously a weird thing to talk about during the lockout, but they really are kind of a unified front in that kind of sense, where it's like, man, dude got paid, awesome. That's the reaction.
Speaking of Wander Franco, Kevin, come 2028, where is Wander Franco playing? Is he playing in St. Petersburg? Is he playing in Tampa? Is he playing in Nashville? Is he playing in Montreal? Is he playing Tampa/St. Pete for the first 3 months of the season, and then in Montreal for the last 3 months of the season, and then it rotates depending on where they're in the playoffs? What's your take on the split city proposal that the Rays have thrown out, and how does this all shake out at the end of the day?
I thought we were going to be nice to Kevin. I thought we were going to be nice to Kevin and no split city talk.
What year is this? 2028, you asked? Was that the question?
2028. That's when the Rays have to be somewhere else.
Okay. Well, two things. One, I don't know what I'm doing next week. But the second thing is I am not an expert on ballpark financing, other than the fact that it's exploitative. The Montreal thing's not going to happen. There's tons of logistic issues to it. It's also kind of just a grandstanding threat to the city of Tampa. The ballpark they're in right now is not a great stadium, but the location issue, personal opinion, overstated. I would guess that in 2028, Wander Franco is playing 81 games in the city of Tampa, but not in that stadium.
Fair enough. I'd love that.
Yeah.
An Ybor Stadium situation for 31 games.
Ybor Stadium would be great. Yeah. That's a fantastic spot for a stadium. You're right. But something like, I don't necessarily think the facility itself is conducive. I think the location they use is kind of an excuse for everything at times. I get the location's not ideal. I'm not saying it's in a great location, because it's not.
Right.
There are plenty of stadiums that you never hear about the location that are actually in less convenient locations than Tampa Stadium. And so, I do think they probably need a new stadium. My guess would be that they're in Tampa playing a different stadium. It wouldn't be 100%. And like, if that's not the case, I would guess that they're playing in a stadium in a city that's not Tampa and also not Montreal. Okay,
that's fine. I want to kind of get a little bit of a personal Kevin Goldstein while watching baseball. How about, who are you now? Are you the guy that has a cold beverage while watching baseball, or are you on Baseball Savant while the game is watching and you want to pitch track and all that? Who are you as a baseball fan? In 2021, at least?
I can be both of those people. There are definitely times where I will just turn a game on honestly and have it on as background while I'm doing something else. There are times where I will watch a game and get like super into it, and I want to bear down on that pitcher, and I got my MacBook here and I got Savant open, and I have another game tracking screen open. Like I've done that. There are times where I'm definitely going to watch the game, but I'm also just kind of, like you said, I have a drink in one hand. I'm, being a jerk on Twitter with the other, and so it really kind of depends. Yeah, it's very much. I can. It's fun to. It's, it's been, it was 8 years where I didn't have that choice.
Right.
And it's also nice to like at times go, boy, I'm going to watch these two teams tonight. That was fun. And so it really depends. I can do I can do all of those things. It's very much, there are times my intensity level can ratchet up and down depending on what else is around me.
And when you're watching these games and when you're doing these sort of different things, can you tell me who is that guy that you're like, no, I got to see this guy? 2021, who was that guy for you? You're like, okay, if he's batting, I'm dropping it. I'm not doing laundry. I got to focus on his at bat. Or a pitcher that you're like, okay, these 6 innings, I'm in this game. Who is that guy for you, at least in 2021?
It really depends. I honestly think I probably have one or two of those guys on every team.
Okay.
Where they either it's either they fill the answer as I think you intended, where it's just like, I'm just so excited to see this guy. Like it's Guerrero, Tatis, those kind of guys. But every team honestly has one or two guys who kind of fascinates me for one reason or another, and I really want to see this. Right? I'm trying to figure out what the hell Nick Madrigal is, and he's up, and I'm stopping everything because I want to see this. I'm trying to figure this out, right? And Nick Madrigal is obviously not a nice little player, but he's not some superstar who sells jerseys. But he's fascinating me right now.
Okay.
And every team, like whatever, Tyler Rogers is coming out of the pen for the Giants. Like, I'm stopping everything. So I want to figure out what that is. I'm trying to figure this out, right?
Yeah, that's amazing.
And
the delivery is insane.
Right, and so I'm trying to figure this out, and so like there's I'm watching this guy just because it's like he's exciting. This is it's absolutely gripping when he's hitting or pitching. But there's I think every team does one or two guys where like man, Alejandro Kirk's up. I'm trying to figure this out. I got to see this, and so so there's both of those, and so I guess the thing I guess I should feel lucky for that is like I can turn on any game and I probably have 3 to 5 guys that are going to excite me just as much. I'm like, oh, holy crap, I'm trying to figure this out.
I'm going to try to guess who those 2 guys might be from the Rays. Were they obviously Wander Franco and Tyler Glasnow before he got hurt?
No, I think I have Glasnow figured out, and that's not an insult. Like the guys off past me are maybe worse than Tyler Glasnow, right? I certainly like Shane Baz's first start. I was like, I haven't seen this kid since high school. I know he has changed dramatically. Well, he actually hasn't changed dramatically. He's in a stuff perspective. Whatever he did was all about line of location and command, and it's amazing what he's done. But I need to bear down. I want to see this, right? I got to figure this out. I went and they change, they move. Where I like, oh, I think I kind of figured this out. So he's no longer there. But like I went through a month of like Mike Zunino's up. Right, trying to figure that out. I'm excited. I'm stopping everything, like looking at my phone. And next up, Mike Zunino. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna watch Mike Zunino. And a lot of the time it's like young players who I haven't gotten a lot of looks at. Like when Brujan was up for a cup of coffee, and like, oh, I want, and some of it's just for your own encyclopedia, for your own database. I call them a body check. I just want to see what it looks like. Like, what's the operation look like? What's this player look like when he swings a bat? And but yeah, there's always a few. I'm trying to think of like any. They had a couple of guys like on the pitching side, certainly. I had McClanahan, like I remember last year getting into that one for a little bit, but they move around a little bit, like who the player is.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Speaking, that's a lot of young names. Baz, Vidal Brujan, list goes on and on. Kevin, either on the Rays or elsewhere, is there who's one prospect that baseball fans need to keep an eye out on for in 2022?
It's a tough one. I'm going to throw this name out just because he's new, and that's Cam Meisner, who came over in the Wendell deal. I'm going to start out by saying I'm not a huge fan of Cam Meisner. I saw him in college. He is, it's a right field profile. It's like body beautiful. Like second he got off the bus, you'd go, yeah, this guy's great. Mm-hmm. It's just he's really impressive. He's got huge raw power. He's very athletic. It all looks the part. And he never hits. Like he strikes out a ton. I just don't think there's enough back there. And I've kind of always been waiting for somebody. And I think the Giants and Dodgers might actually be ahead of other baseball teams in this sense of actually kind of getting. You still need a baseline, but a little bit better hit tool out of guys like this.
Okay.
And I'm waiting for, and I wonder if Meisner can figure something out in Tampa. I wouldn't bet on it, and it's probably not. And I'm not saying he's a breakout. I'm just like interested to see if something different happens with him there. Because again, to go back to something I think we talked about in the first 3 minutes, the tools are there, right? The tools are there all day. He's 6'4", he's 220, he's built like a football player. He moves really, really well. And when he touches the ball, it goes a long way. It's real impressive. It's big bopper kind of power. Just don't know if there's enough bat in him for it to ever matter. But I do wonder. I think the Rays do interesting things in terms of player development. I'm just kind of interested to see, like, again, not betting on it, but interested to see if something does change with them in that regard. And it's like anything, I think, the Rays are really smart with their acquisitions, and this happens in the industry too. Like the Rays trade for someone and we all kind of go, oh, what do they see in that guy? And you want to figure that out. And I'm interested if they actually did see something in Meisner, or if they just said, nah, let's get the guy with the tools and the upside and we'll see if we figure it out. And maybe we don't.
Right. And, the Rays get a lot of high marks for their pitching development and their analytics team as well. But flipping gears, what about the hitting side? Is there an organization that is known as this is the gold standard for developing hitters?
Dodgers are up there, and some of that Dodgers thing is in the sense that the Dodgers are. I think the Dodgers have figured something out in terms of approach, which has been another kind of, to use the term again, a white whale for teams. I think players and all have just kind of have a very small range of what their approach can be. And like, if you have a guy who's like super free swinging, you're not going to turn him into Ricky Henderson. It's just not going to happen. They've seemed to like get a consistent improvement, even if it's incremental, in approach on guys. And I think they have figured something out. And I know people with other teams who think they have figured something out, and they're all trying to figure out what that is. And I don't know what it is, but people are pretty convinced they have something. You'd fit very well in a front office, Ulises, with your conspiracies, because they all have them. And so, there's all sorts. Everyone thinks they got something. Everyone thinks every other team has something figured out, and are spending an inordinate amount of time trying to figure out what that thing is.
Right.
There are players. I can even think of players like the Astros acquired, where we liked some things about him and got him, and the player had a breakout campaign, not that even we thought he would have, and people would go, oh man, what'd you know about that guy going in? What'd you? And it's like, well, you never know. We didn't know shit. We got lucky. But yeah, to go back to I ramble. The Dodgers definitely, I think, are a team that has some sort of something going on with hitting, but I do think that advantage again is more approach and swing decision based, and kind of getting guys to hit a ball with a bat based.
Now, it wouldn't be a baseball podcast, Kevin's, if we didn't talk about the lockout. So if you could just wave a wand and you could fix one thing and one thing only from this lockout, what would that be? Would it be service time manipulation to be gone? Would it be a universal DH? Would it be better wages? What would that one thing be for Kevin Goldstein?
I'm going to let you define this however you want to, because I think it's more of a vague thing. But I think Major League Baseball needs a rule set that incentivizes teams to put their best 25 players on the field every day. I think that rule set solves most of the external problems on things like arbitration and service time manipulation and things like that. I think if there's a rule set that encourages teams to have their best 25 players on the field, a lot of other stuff gets solved.
Do you think that would be expanded playoffs?
I think expanded playoffs actually, it's interesting you brought that up, actually play a surprising role in that, in the sense that they would make, you're walking into the year thinking you might win 78 to 80. All of a sudden, if 86 gets you in, you might make that move, right? Where before you'd go, we're not going to catch the Rays or the Yankees or the Astros here, and screw it, I'm not going to spend that kind of money. But actually, if something like, I don't know, 85, we're actually got a chance, and then you do. I think more importantly, it it makes, and not to pick on, it's obviously hardly the only time it happened, but it Adley Rutschman should be playing for the Orioles right now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Period.
Yeah.
Like, he's their best catcher. He should be the one playing. And I think a rule set that incentivizes that, as opposed to the one, it's not even that we don't have a rule that incentivizes, like, we have a rule that disincentivizes them to call up the player. And so if that's the case, the system is broken. It's not good. It's not good for baseball. It's not good for the fans of the Orioles. And that's a broken system. And so, we need to have a system where teams are incentivized where Baltimore is incentivized to have Adley Rutschman up. And that involves, that involves things like service time, and we need to kind of recalculate how we do that, and when players come up and when players don't. So players are getting to free agency when they need to, but also teams are getting as much as they get from those players before they get there. And it should not be based on some sort of strange service time measurement in days in the big leagues, because that what creates this bad outcome, and I'm saying all of this as someone who worked for the Houston Astros who tanked. They would never use that term, but that's what they did. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I've always been a big kind of don't hate the game, don't hate the player, hate the game kind of person. And like, the system is so set up to encourage it, that you'd almost be a fool not to at times. And when you think about the Astros that front office inherited, absolute morons not to do it, and hated doing it, but like, the system screamed, do it. And we need a system that doesn't scream, do it. That's what we need.
The system has screamed it so loud that you saw it as Rays fans. 2008, David Price having such a tremendous September, October, starting the year in AAA in 2009. And now it makes me think, again, conspiracy theory, a guy like Shane Baz, could he start in AAA in 2022? I mean, it's why wouldn't they do it for an extra year time?
I mean, we'll see what we end up walking out with, when they come to an agreement in, I don't know, February 3rd or so. We'll see what we're walking out with in terms of trying to fix that. And I hope I hope it's a situation that's best for Baz and other players as well. So it's hard to say, but I do already think that there might be, based on what we saw the week before the lockout, with teams losing their goddamn minds. But think about who lost their goddamn minds, right? The Rangers,
the Tigers,
and while they didn't shop at Saks Fifth Avenue, like, even the Marlins stopped shopping at Walmart, right? They went to Target a little bit, right? And so all of a sudden, like, these teams have lost 100 games or were way out of the standings. All of a sudden went with the radical philosophy of, maybe we'll make the roster better by spending some money.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. And I was like, this is fantastic. This is great. It's great for the fans of those teams. It's great for baseball. It's great for the players. This is fantastic. And so maybe we are seeing kind of a shift change, or maybe we're seeing teams start to exercise a shift change, hopefully, because I know that, hopefully because they know that they're no longer going to be incentivized to do the tank and draft strategy.
Hopefully.
A couple final questions here as we push up on an hour.
I got 5 more.
We have to, as much as we love to keep you on for that length of time, we also want to be respectful as well.
You're talking to somebody who puts out like a 3-hour podcast every week, so I'm fine.
And we listen.
No, you moron. So I'm so sorry. Should I apologize now? Do we need to send you like a gift card?
Not at all.
What do you need?
Ulysses was playing the piano while he was listening to chin music and eating.
Yeah.
You were doing like 3 things at once, I think.
I know. Thank you. I don't know if that's a talent, but thank you.
There we go. You put that in your resume when you're trying to get a job with the Rays or whatnot.
Sure.
What is Carlos Correa? How much does he get in free agency, considering what Corey Seager got and Javi Baez and all these other guys?
I think he's either going to want. I mean, he's going to want to exceed something, right? Mm-hmm. He's either going to want to exceed the 10-325 that Seager got. But I think he'd also probably be open to a much shorter deal, a bet on himself deal, if he was able to get some sort of AAV record, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I bet he would be open to like a 3 times 50.
Oof.
And set a record, right? Set a record, set an AAV record, or whatever, 3 times 45. Set a record. Get your record. I'm number one. And if you're Carlos Correa, and you guys got to remember how young he is, Carlos Correa, you set your AAV record, you get your 345, you get 135 million over 3, and at 30, you're a free agent again, and you're still younger than most of the shortstops in the market, right?
Wow.
And so, I knowing Carlos, my guess was that he probably wants to surpass what Seager has done one way or another, and we'll see where he ends up.
What do you consider to be the most head-scratching move, trade, or signing right before the lockout presented itself?
It's a good question. I'm trying to think of anything. I think it's let me preface it by saying again, I'm happy that any player gets their contract. Get paid. Get your money. Get paid. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Dollar bill, y'all. And like I'm all for it. Get paid. I was surprised to see Javi Baez get a deal the size he got. I just didn't know if they didn't think the market for him would be there. I also think I would be the team that wanted to give him that. Like really good defensive player. And maybe he does some things in Detroit that he's not going to do. So I think he does impact kind of the vibes of a team in a really good way. Just a like crazy energy guy, and I think he can definitely help Detroit in that regard. I just really worry about the offense with him, and just the combination of the walk and the K rate really scares the hell out of me for his future. So I guess that's the one that surprised me the most, kind of just and both in terms of length and annual commitment.
Is the Houston Astros the team you still follow the most, or is there maybe a childhood Kevin inside that says, you know what, I'm going to revert to my childhood team? How is that fandom to you, or are you just a baseball fan?
Yeah, definitely the latter. I grew up a Mets fan. I was a huge Astros fan while I worked for the Astros. Like I said, skin in the game, and also you get to know some of the players, and also they're paying my mortgage, and all those things are really good reasons to be the fan of a team. But the Astros fired me, right? I don't know where you guys. I'm sure you guys have had jobs where you fired. Not fans of them anymore, are you?
No.
So I mean, I went backwards. I think I went backwards to my first media gig where I was actually in the sculpture, which is I am, like you said, I'm a fan of the baseball game. I have no I don't root for or against anyone as much as I'm rooting for really good baseball, right? When I think about game 6 of a series, I'm rooting for game 7. That's what I'm rooting for, right?
Okay.
I guarantee you, like any playoff series that went to a game 6, I was rooting for the team down 3-2 because I wanted a game 7.
Yeah.
I root for drama. I root for players is what I root for. There are players I really like who I root for, far more than teams. But I do love baseball, and like this weekend, I guarantee you I will be watching Dominican Winter League games.
Yeah.
Right. And so I like to watch baseball. I like to have fun watching baseball. I've been down there for Winter League games. It's a blast, and that kind of thing. And so it's not. I don't sit there. I'm not at all. I think kind of. I think some level of fandom's kind of a disease. And I think it's okay to have your team and have it like your team, but I think you always have to be careful of the way you feel about your team making you irrational. About players or other things or players, either in terms of what they do on the field or sometimes what they don't do or what they do off the field and how that makes you feel. And so, yeah, I love baseball. And I love baseball players. I don't really have any team anymore. I don't root for the Mets anymore, even though that was the team I loved as a kid. So yeah, I don't sit there and I don't wake up and say who's team X playing and that's who I'm going to watch at all in any way.
That's a tremendous question, and in your love for baseball, it's just so palpable, and I hope that ours is as well.
It's a disease as well, to believe me.
Yeah, maybe. It would be so great to just go to the Louisville Slugger Museum with you. I think that would be just the most amazing time. So there you go. I just dropped that.
I'll meet you there one day.
There you go.
Very good. Couple final things here, Kevin. I know I said I was going to wrap things up a couple minutes ago, but just a couple last things. What do you consider to be the biggest misunderstanding or misconception that fans and or media have about the game of baseball?
I think we addressed a couple of them.
Okay.
One being what a manager's job is,
Okay.
or what's important to a manager. And the importance of what catchers do beyond what you see on the back of a baseball card or even on a FanGraphs baseball reference page, like important of just what that guy behind the plate does. Just how many human beings are involved in a player from the time he's first laid eyes on as an amateur to the time he makes his major league debut.
Interesting. And then last thing, you working in a front office for as long as you did, what would you or who would you prefer to work for? A guy like Steve Cohen, who's willing to spend tons of money, but also maybe a little bit overbearing, head case, pain in the rear end, or a guy like Stu Sternberg, who is regarded as a bit of a penny pincher, but also hands off and lets the front office guys and execs do their job. What camp would you rather be in?
Cohen all the way. Yeah, no, I want the best players, period. And the thing is, like, you said Cohen's like a pain in the butt. Like, I don't know how much a pain in the butt he is for the people in the front office, right? Like, if Steve Cohen's going to tweet some dumb shit and I still have a $280 million budget, tweet every goddamn day. I don't give a shit, right? I can I can deal with that. I don't care how you can do stupid tweets. It's about the hands-off thing is a really good thing. Like, if he's there, I'm happy to deal with Steve and talk to Steve and let him know why we're making those decisions. My mind changes if Steve's coming in and saying, you have to sign this guy, or I won't let you sign this guy, or no, I won't let you make this trade. Like, that's the owner you don't want, right? If you're some like pain in the ass owner because you tweet a lot, or even just because you're around a lot and you want to be talked to and things need to be explained to you because your money, that's cool. But if Cohen's like, give me $280 million to work with, and he's staying out of the way of the baseball decisions and just like the absolute, like the hammer down baseball decisions, yes or no. But I still need, but he's like high maintenance all day. Give it to me. Take it. Yeah. Give me my 280.
That's awesome.
Very good. Kevin, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for the time and all the insight. Is there anything you want to promote on FanGraphs or social media, podcast, etc.?
I mean, obviously there's tons of great content every day at FanGraphs, including that even now with the lockout going on. We'll keep going. Prospect lists are rolling out soon. That's exciting. Every Friday morning, my podcast comes out, which is Chin Music, which is, I don't know, 2 to 3 hours a week. Different co-host every week, different guests every week. This week it's Lindsay Adler, who covers the Yankees for The Athletic, and the guest is my dear friend Brandon Shaq Harris, who is a 2-time bracelet winner in the World Series of Poker, a professional poker player, and a wonderfully strange human being. And that comes out every Friday morning. If you got 2.5 hours to kill, it's a good time. And then if you want to watch me be a jerk on Twitter, it's Kevin_Goldstein.
Why DeKalb, Illinois? Why live there?
It's family stuff.
Okay.
I don't know how much longer we'll be here. But my wife's children are here and we came here.
Okay. Ulises and I prefer the palm trees in the sun. So
yeah, that's fine. It's lovely here today. It's like it's gonna be like 48 right now. It's really unseasonably warm.
I have a beanie and it's 76 in my apartment.
Right. You remind me of the Dominican kids who like go to the Midwest League for the first time. It's like 62 and they got like a parka and a scarf and gloves on. Yeah.
You're not very far. I mean, Venezuelan. I don't know. giving us one.
I got you.
Yeah. No, when it drops below 70, we're putting hot rub on. That's
No,
what we're doing.
I've been down there and laughed at
Yeah.
people when it's 58 degrees in Florida and laughed at how people dress.
Yeah.
I'm walking around.
Yeah.
It's 58. I got short sleeves on. And people are like, what are you people doing?
Kevin, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anytime, guys.